A lot of the times motherhood, it's pitted this idea that kids somehow take away from who you are. They take away from your
Hmm.
identity. They take away from what you're capable of. Or it's you have to choose between like being a good mom for your kids or like your professional like career climbing. You can't kind of have both. And I think for me and what I've experienced with other women as well is like having kids refined the priorities.
Welcome to the Sparkle Project. I'm Emily, a divorced mom of two on my own journey to shine a little brighter. This podcast is here to help you protect your sparkle amidst the chaos and impossible expectations of modern motherhood. If you're a mom ready to choose yourself and shine, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. If you're a mom who had your shit together before having kids, and then when kids came along, it completely rocked your world, this one is for you. I know so many of you listening can identify with the high achieving woman archetype. You've always been ambitious, you've found success in a lot of what you do, and that's been part of your identity. But raising kids hasn't been exactly what you thought it would be, and you are not quite the same. That is what we're going to be digging into today. Joining me is Alexis Adams. Alexis brings her training as a mental health therapist and experience as a mom of three to her work coaching high-performing moms who appear to have it all together on the outside, but struggle to feel like it's enough on the inside. She helps moms to stop reacting and finally feel as solid as they look without compromising ambition. Alexis, welcome to the Sparkle Project. I am so ready to dig into this with you. Can you just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, all that good
Yeah.
stuff?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, like my training, my background is in licensed mental health therapy. That has been, I think I've been a therapist for just shy of 10 years now, kind of internship and all of that included. I have gone through the gamut. I used to work in addictions and community mental health. I transitioned into like perinatal mental health, which is like postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. I knew I had a passion for moms. There was so much to that story, even of entering motherhood as a therapist. I thought I was prepared. I thought I knew what to look for when it came to anxiety and depression and all those pieces. And I wasn't. And I wanted to pay that forward to other moms who, didn't have that know how because it's not spoken about enough. Fast forward a little bit, it was like, okay, yes, that first 3 months of motherhood is hard, right? Like when you're in that first bubble and like you're just trying to figure out your rhythm. But a lot of the times, moms have support. A lot of times people
Mm-hmm.
come over and see the baby at the very least, right? And then after that, after the baby's not a baby anymore, the support dies off. Like the meal train stops, you're expected to go back to work, you're expected to do all these things, and you're like confronted with motherhood, like full on,
Yeah.
no stop, like you're confronted with motherhood. And it was in that period, that idea that like after that 3 month mark, that 4 month mark, you still are being confronted with all of this stuff that comes with being a mom. Like, how do you prioritize yourself? How do you balance, working life and like the ambitions that you had? I know for me personally, when I had my son, he's my oldest, he's 8 years old now at the time of this recording. And like, I thought he would just be tacked into my life, and he wasn't. It was like an entire 180 on my priorities because I didn't want to work late. I didn't want to stay at the office all the time. Like, I wanted to be home with him and wanting that flexibility in our schedule and all of the things. Motherhood rocked me. It like cracked me wide open, for, lack of a better term. And so I really took that passion. I took my clinical experience and I want to help other moms.
I think it's so important that we're talking about the ways in which our identities are changed forever by motherhood. And it's a
Mhm.
continuous journey, it's a continuous evolution of sorts. But I do think there's so much focus on that initial postpartum period, which is crucial. It's crucial that we're talking about those things. It's critical that moms have support during that time. Obviously, that is a really big deal, right? But also, there's so much that happens after that. It's navigating a world that's not necessarily built for you to be ambitious in. And yet you're coming to the table with everything you were prior to having kids and this complete change that happens when you do have kids, change to your priorities, change to your values, change to just what's actually possible, right? Like
Yeah.
we have a whole human now that we're responsible for, or a few. And so I think it's awesome that your work has shifted to helping women in that stage of like, okay, now how do I kind of integrate all of those pieces of me and figure out how that works in this new season? And it's
Yeah.
always a new season, it's always changing.
It is always changing and it is always evolving. And I will say that the other piece of this too is like, yes, you are a mom and you take a lot of joy in being a mom. Like I know for me personally, like I love being a mom and
Hmm.
also I love being a professional and I
Hmm.
love being able to do other things. Like I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. Like I love being able to do that. I love being able to serve my clients. I love being able to go out with my friends and have fun and do other things. And so it's that idea of like you're not less of a mom
Yeah.
because you love those things and you're also not less of a, professional or whatever just because you're a mom. And so it's finding a way, as you mentioned, like integrating all of those pieces of you. And coming from a place too, I was just talking to somebody else on my podcast actually. She was going through a career transition. She was working for herself and then decided that like that's not the thing she wanted anymore. And so kind of
Hmm.
pivoted away to stay with her kids. And we were talking about this fact that, like, a lot of the times motherhood, it's pitted this idea that kids somehow take away from who you are. They take away from your
Hmm.
identity. They take away from what you're capable of. Or it's you have to choose between like being a good mom for your kids or like your professional, like career climbing. You can't kind of have both. And I think for me, and what I've experienced with other women as well, is like having kids refined the priorities. It helped to
Yeah.
focus in what actually matters and motivate in a different way than I've ever lived, right? For me, a lot of my life was based on performance. Like I was
Yeah.
always trying to make everybody else happy, do what I should, follow the rules, like do all the right things. So then all the good stuff happens, right? And after kids, it was like, I don't have that kind of control. I mean, my son, I studied parenting like it was a test. I had so many books on sleep and breastfeeding and how to parent and all of these things. My husband picked up none of them. I studied parenting before I became a parent. And as soon as he was born and as soon as we brought him home, he was in our bed. We were co sleeping family for like the
Hmm.
first year of his life after we had planned to sleep train and do all of these things. There was no way. And so we were a co-sleeping family and it was like the rule book got thrown out and it was all of a sudden I had to be incredibly intentional. I had to be incredibly self-aware of like what stuff I'm bringing into my parenting relationship with my kids. It refocused all of my priorities on what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think that experience is something a lot of women go through, feeling like you are obviously going to be able to handle this. You know what you're doing. You've done the work. You have done the research. You are so prepared. And up until this point in your life, that works, right? Like you go to school, you do well because you're prepared. You go get the career and you do well because you're prepared. You know what you're doing. You've put in the work. And with motherhood, as you just said, that's not always realistic. That's not always what happens. You can
Yeah.
learn everything. You can have all of the tools in your tool belt because you've read the books, you've followed the accounts, you've done all the research, and yet in practice, you might not be succeeding, quote, succeeding with the outcomes that you think you're going to get because you're dealing with a human who's a child who there's so
Yeah.
many factors. I'm curious in your experience, that kind of disconnect between what you expected would happen and what actually happened. How did that impact your identity as someone who identified as a high performing, high achieving woman who knew what they were doing in life and could succeed?
Yeah. So becoming a mom and having kind of the lack of control, the lack of like this completely different than what I expected was I really felt critical of myself. Like I somehow was failing, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't the right fit for this, that something that was wrong with me because my priorities shifted after my second was born. I can remember specifically, I have a bunch of high school friends that we used to during COVID, like get on Zoom chats like once a week, once every couple weeks, and just have a nice wine night or like just a chill night of chit chat. And I was the only one to have kids at that time. Like literally none of my other friends had kids. I was the only one with kids. Not only that, I had two kids. And they're
Mm-hmm.
sitting here talking about like what travel they had just done because they could just pick up and go, or what promotions they were up for, and like how they were really stressed out with their jobs because they had these really fancy titles. And here I was staying at home with my daughter and my son because it just made more sense for us to stay at home than to literally pay my salary to daycare. And I just felt so rocked in my identity because I wasn't the same person that, was the teacher's pet and all of those things that they knew. I also was not I didn't feel like a stay-at-home mom, and I don't mean
Mhm.
that in a critical way because my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I have so much respect for stay-at-home moms, but it was like that didn't fully light me up in the same ways that I expected it to, but working didn't light me up, and so I felt like this torn between two worlds where I didn't really know what my place was. I didn't know how to manage all of that, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go with that. One of my other friends, my only friend who we literally have babies, our first 3 babies are within 2 weeks to 2 months of each other. And when she called me that she was pregnant with her 4th, I was like, "Oh, so you're telling me I'm pregnant too?" Because we've been together, like, every single time. She was my only person that really understood the experience, but she was working. Like, she was still working
Yeah.
with her 2 kids, so she didn't fully grasp it in the same ways. We have very similar personalities, we have very similar interests, blah, 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 but I felt so disoriented in my identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't feel enough. I was just confronted with everything that I had experienced most of my life, if I'm being honest. Most of my life, I hadn't felt enough. I felt like I had something to prove. I was always chasing the grades, the success. I was the teacher's pet, the do extra homework, do extra research. Like people copied off my papers, like growing up, like in elementary school and stuff. Like I was the kid to sit next to during movie day whenever there was a sub because I was doing the work and paying attention and they were
Yeah.
not. And so for me to have that kind of turned on its head of like, I don't know what I want, I don't know who I am, and I don't know how to define that was really challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I relate a lot to that. And I think that idea of being confronted with your past and the patterns of how you've existed that just were normal and worked, but then you start to see how much you've attached your value to those things, right? Like you are
Mhm.
worth something because of those things. And when you're staying home with the kids, this isn't necessarily what you wanted for yourself. I think we also have this idea going into motherhood that either you'll be a working mom or a stay-at-home mom, and like you'll embrace that identity and it'll be who you are. And stay-at-home moms, obviously that's like what they want to do and all these things. And the reality is that we live in a complex world. Finances alone are making a lot of those decisions for families. Like
1,000%.
whether it's to go to work or not, like you said, like you have multiple kids, maybe you're staying home because financially it makes more sense, but really you are an ambitious person who is good at things and you want to be putting your skills to work, but that might
Yeah.
not be the reality. And I think that idea of having to look at ourselves through how we see other people perceiving us, or we believe other people might be perceiving us, of like, well, now I'm just a mom. Like, I don't really know what to do with that. Is that true? Is that how people are taking me in? Because they know me as someone who does
Yeah.
all these things. And then also with ourselves, it's like, okay, now what is this all? Like, who am I at my core if I'm not performing in these external ways that are getting me the kudos that I need to feel like it's enough, right?
Yeah, and the tendency is actually, I found my old tendencies kind of coming up of like try harder, do better, do more, like
Yeah.
be excellent, right? And so that looked like I'd literally greet my husband, especially when I had my second. My second was kind of she came during COVID. She was when I was like
Yeah.
most confronted with anxiety, blah, blah, blah. She's like just so special in my heart for a lot of different reasons. Each of my kids are, but like with my second specifically, I did a really big 180 in a different direction. And so I remember he'd come through the door and I'd be like, I did this and I did this and the kids and I did this. And he was like, okay, like, and like, thank you. I don't know what you want
Yeah.
me to say here because like, thank you, but I didn't ask you to do this. And I thought we were going to plan to do this, later on. And I was like, but I had the time and I want to take it off your load. Right. Like I tried to measure myself by like how much I could get done in a day or like what I was getting done in a day, how committed I was to my kids, right? Like, so it was all about this, like do more, do better. When my son was born, it was do more, do better, like study up, like make sure you're prepared, be in control, keep yourself in control. And that's just not how life functions. Like you can do all the right things and it doesn't mean crap, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean that from a pessimistic place, but what I'm saying is like there are a lot of moms who will tell me like, I get up super early and so I can have my quiet time and my coffee without interruption. And I still snap at my kids at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
There are other moms who are like, I time block my calendar so that I have like really committed time with my kids, but I still feel really like just burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed out, don't know how I can do this. I'm unhappy. I should be grateful for all of these things because I literally have the life that I wanted, the life that I built and worked so hard for. And like, I just don't feel it. There
Yeah.
are other moms that they are so stressed out and worried that they're going to give their kids anxiety, is like literally how some of my clients have worded it, is like they're nutcases and they are scared they're going to make their kids nutcases, is how I've literally had this in a message to me.
Hmm.
That they are trying so hard to not be anxious that they're anxious, and that they're trying so hard to
Yeah.
prevent their kids from being anxious that they're like making their kids anxious. So there's no winning. And the more we try and the harder we hold on to life, like the more it kind of goes out sideways.
Yeah. It's like that perfection that we've strived for that works in every other situation up to this point. Then you get a child, and all our kids are different. Like if you're somebody with multiple kids, you can see that because like I have two boys and it sounds like my two are right around the same age as your first two. And they are so different from each other. It becomes so clear of like, okay, this isn't just a parenting thing. This is who you are. I see other parents who have kids that are very different than mine. I'm like, we are living completely different lives right now as parents. And that's the reality of it. Like we all have different kids. We all live different lives with our kids. You have so much less, not even so much less control, because I feel like that's understating it. You don't have control of a lot of things. You can't have control
Mhm.
of a lot of things, right? Like it's just the way it is. It's the nature of being a parent. But that concept then of feeling like you're doing so much, you're trying to like check the boxes because that's in the past how you found yourself to be successful, right? But now you're doing it and you're expecting external validation still, but you don't get that external validation because it's not the same thing. There's not these external goals that you're supposed to be hitting. And if there's like specific things, you don't have control over your kids hitting those milestones. You don't have control over your kids necessarily not acting out in public, right? Like there's all kinds of things you no longer have control over. Like, of course, that's going to rock you to your core when you
Yeah.
can't be successful in the same ways that you've always defined success for yourself. I'm wondering how that kind of shows up in the body, how that shows up in mental health and the way that then we come to existence as a mom when we
Yeah.
are constantly falling short, right? We're constantly failing with those expectations and standards.
So I would say there's a few different pathways, right? Like a lot of the women that come to me. So I'm not a parenting expert, right? And that is like
Mm-hmm.
generally not my approach by any means,
Yeah.
because I'm figuring it out the same as you, sister. Like it's more of the fact that the kids are the soft spot, right? And so the kids are the soft spot. It is like, I don't mind being stressed out. I don't mind being overwhelmed. I pretty much live my life being stressed out and overwhelmed or anxious, like to a degree. But now
Yeah.
I'm taking it out on my family and they're getting what's left. And so I find that a lot of it comes back to relationships of they are snapping at their kids for stupid things. They are having the same fight with their husband or not fighting with their husband. Like they've just like resigned to the fact that we're just going to be like two roommates in a house and that's just going to be how it is. And they're scared that divorce is like the next step, but they also love their person. So they're not totally sure how to navigate that. It's this idea that they are like rushing and feeling urgent, panicky, like this idea that there's always something that has to be going. It's unsettling. It's just like this electric sort of energy in their
Yeah.
bodies a lot of the time. And then it comes out as like rage and snapping and frustration, because that's just after a certain point, your pressure cooker is full, right? Like if your life is just kind of compounding and compounding, eventually it has to go somewhere. So while it wasn't the kids, spilling the milk that really was the problem, that's what it comes out on. Or I've had many moms I meet with, they're like, I'm overstimulated. And I'm like, yes, okay, I get it. You're sensitive to noise, and most people have something, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably more of what's happening in your head that's actually creating that overstimulation, because you've got a lot of noise in your head of like, I need to be doing this. I should be doing this. We've got to keep up with this, right? And so you've got this like mental to-do list. You're constantly scanning to make sure everybody's happy and okay and safe. And then you're adding on top of that, the music's on and the kids are, screaming and yelling because it's almost dinner time and your husband walked through the door, right? It is this busyness in your body, busyness in your mind, which most people can tolerate. But when they start taking it out on their families is the big shift. And then, of course, there's, I don't focus much on this, but I work with a lot of holistic providers and that sort of thing. But a lot of women think it's their hormones. And not to say that it's not, but generally hormones and mental health kind of actually go together. That your mental health is kind of the cue that something else is going on. Your hormones kind of create these
Yeah.
things. Your mental health also impacts your hormones. So they're kind of hand in hand in a lot of ways. And a lot of women will think like, well, my hormones are crap, or I'm going through, perimenopause, or I'm whatever. And it's like, yes, and stress is not helping you.
Yeah.
Gut health stuff like headaches, tension, like in the shoulders. I mean, I guarantee if anyone who's listening to this right now, like if I just told you like, what's your jaw doing? What's your fist doing? What's your shoulders doing? Like most of them would be like, oh, I've been having them up by my ears and my fists
Mm-hmm.
have been closed and like my jaw has been tight, and you don't notice it because it's just normal for you. And that I think is even more concerning to me, is that most people don't register how stressed out they actually are. Most people don't register what all they're carrying until it literally comes out sideways. I was just having a conversation with somebody who they were talking about their fitness tracker or what have you. And they were like, I solidly like spend half of my day in a stress state. And like until they had this fitness tracker, they didn't even register it. They were like, and it was a stark difference from a time when they took a day off. Like they just had a complete Sabbath of a day. And they were like, I barely had 30 minutes of stress when I had a Sabbath. And most days I carried half my day at like a high stress level. It's not that you have to stop doing things. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
compromise ambition. You don't have to do less. You don't have to take less on. You can still have a busy and full life. It's more about what's happening internally than what's happening externally.
Yeah, I actually want to get into that because I know that's one of the kind of foundations to your work is this idea that you don't have to do less. It's not about saying, okay, I'm gonna reorient myself and not identify so much as an ambitious woman, right? Like it's not
Right.
about that. It's about changing the place that you're kind of acting from. Can you unpack for us a little bit more what that idea kind of entails?
Yeah. So for me, I have had plenty of clients who they will ask for additional help. They will, reduce their work schedule. They'll take their self care days. Like they'll do all of that and still not feel satisfied. They'll still not feel
Yeah.
fulfilled because they feel guilty that they had to step away. They feel guilty that there's so much to catch up on. They are wondering what people think of them. Like I have had one of my clients in particular, I can think about this to reduce her workload from like, I think she was doing 5 days a week to 4 days a week. She literally spent 2 sessions with me at least talking through of, well, what will people think? They must think I'm like just mooching off my husband. Oh my gosh, like what will they think about, I bought this practice. I did these things and now they're going to think less of me, right?
Hmm.
And so it's this idea of like we're constantly worried about what other people think. We're worried about what that looks like on us. We want to remain relevant. I mean, like relevant is a term I use a lot with my clients, is like we like being special, and being the super mom sometimes feels like we're something special, that people need us, that we stand out. And if we don't have that edge, we feel like we lose our specialness. And that's the problem there. And all of that you can't reason your way out of. You can't
Hmm.
schedule your way out of because you're still confronted with those fears. Your life is literally being run by fear. And until you learn to kind of shift that fear into something that says, I love myself, I love my family, and that's how I'm showing up versus I'm going to show up afraid, it doesn't matter what you do. It truly doesn't, because it's how you do it. And if it's always in fear, then that's not going to feel aligned. It's going to feel like you're on a treadmill constantly.
Yeah. So it's almost like the goal becomes like looking like you have it all together, looking like you are rocking it. And that
Mhm.
doesn't then line up with what's going on internally because it's too much. It's too impossible to meet those standards of like people are seeing me as the super mom. It's not realistic.
Yeah, I think so. One of my clients, like particularly, has this idea too. Like she's told me that, like, a lot of it feels like, well, fake it till you make it kind of idea.
Mm.
So if I fake that I've got it together, then eventually, like, I will have it together. I'll feel that way. And it's like, yeah, maybe a little bit. Like, I'm not totally opposed to the fake it till you make it idea, but again, it's the wrong fuel. It's not coming from a place of like, what is it that I want? What is this? Like, what is it that's aligned for me? What is it that matters to me? And so the fake it till you make it piece, I think there is a part of it that's like, if I put it out there enough, then eventually I'll believe it too. And that doesn't always work.
Yeah. So I kind of want to shift then into what does work? What does allow us to feel better in the way we exist in the world, being ambitious, pursuing our own things, and being a mom, feeling like we're doing enough in all of those areas?
So, I mean, of course, the therapist is going to say this, but like a big piece of it is actually like dealing with your emotions. So, I'll kind of share with an example because I feel like this is the easier way to understand it. I know a lot of the moms I work with are very like emotionally aware. They've done the like big little feelings, they've done all of the like emotionally aware work, right? Wonderful. And that's fantastic. I love that for them. And we still have these beliefs around our emotions of what we're allowed to feel, what's acceptable to feel, how long we have to feel those things. And so we constantly are arguing with ourselves of like what we should feel. So I had a mom the other day who was telling me that like she feels like she's just a crappy mom because she doesn't want to spend time with her kid. And I'm like, that could be one label. Sure, like you don't want to spend time with your kid, but it's also this idea that you're telling yourself you're a crappy mom, which then makes you feel even crappier when not actually is going on is this, right? We have to understand kind of the stories we're telling ourselves about our experiences, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, the like all the pieces of the puzzle, not just the one. So many people will talk about like, we'll just add more self-care or, just get up a little bit earlier, just do these like emotional regulation things, these coping skills. And it's like, that's a small piece of the bigger puzzle. It's overly simplified advice. What you actually have to do is say, like, I'm allowed to feel anxious. I'm allowed to feel guilty. And then I get to make an intentional choice of like, how much influence does that have in my life? So I like to talk about it from a place of it's a rewiring your operating system, right?
Mm-hmm.
You functioned from this operating system that says do more, be better, like achieve, 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 and really focused on this outcome, really focused on like what other people think of you, perfectionism, people pleasing, all of that kind of lumps into that, right? And so what I have created my framework around is this idea of like, I am not going to tell you what is right or wrong for you. I'm not going to tell you to do less. I'm not going to tell you to do more. I have clients that are literally leading jobs that they've been at for years. I have other clients that are stepping into higher promotions. I have clients that are starting their own businesses. Like, I couldn't tell you what is the best path for you because it's unique to you. It's more about how do you make those decisions? What place
Yeah.
are they coming from? And I have a framework for that. I'm just going to focus on the first little bit of that framework actually, because I feel like that is the part I spend most of my time with my clients. And so kind of a quick overview is POW. The entire framework is power, but POW is the first three parts that I focus a lot of time with clients. And that is pause, observe, and wire. So pause is literally that. It's the smallest part of the framework. It is literally just you have to stop in order to pay attention to what's actually happening. And it's this idea of take notice.
Yeah.
So you're standing at the kitchen table and you're about to completely lose your crap on your kids, or you're feeling that sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm so irritated. It's literally just pause and stop what you're doing, stop cutting the vegetables, stop like doing whatever it is you're doing. And it doesn't have to be a long drawn out thing. It's just stop. And then after that, it's more about like noticing what's actually happening for you. Because a lot of the times we have these stories around what is happening for us. Like, oh my gosh, the kids are, getting on my last nerve. They don't understand what all I have to do. And it's just noticing where are you, what's happening, what do you notice? Like what's happening in your brain, what's happening in your physical body, like what's happening. Again, like when I go in with clients, we go a lot deeper than this. I'm giving the bare minimum overview here, and then the wire is that you have an intentional choice to make because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time we are automatically responding. We're automatically like reacting to a situation based on frameworks that have existed for us in the past. So I like to say that like our brain is really good at its job, but sometimes it's a little too good. And so what fires together, wires together. I don't remember what psychotherapist came up with that. It's not my framework. It's somebody else's framework that says like what fires in your brain together, wires together. So if I always pick up my phone in the morning, I will automatically start picking up my phone every morning because my brain says this is firing together. This is what we do. When that is the case, you will automatically respond in a way that you have responded and it has worked for you at least to some degree. Now, yelling at my kids doesn't technically work, right? Because I feel like crap afterwards. They feel like crap, but it worked enough to get a response. You feel a little bit of relief before you feel the shame, all of those pieces. And so what fires together, wires together. And so if we have to change that wiring. And so that's where a lot of people get hung up is like, you know what to do. It's really hard to do it because you're functioning from old patterns and old frameworks. So you literally have to rewire your brain. And so it's less about what you're doing and more about where is that coming from. And again, that's why I take people through the framework that you have to look at what the stories are that you're telling yourself about what's happening.
Yeah. Even understanding that we have to intentionally pause, like that has to be the first step when
Mhm.
we are so just caught up in life, because we all
Mhm.
are. Like there's so much going on at any given moment. Of course, we have to be functioning in autopilot a lot of the
Mhm.
times. Like we wouldn't be able to be intentional about every single thing. That would be
Yeah.
exhausting and too much.
Yeah.
But if there's something we do want to intentionally address because we're not feeling super satisfied with life, we're feeling guilty about things, we are reacting in a way that we don't necessarily want to be reacting, whatever it is, right? If it's something that has to do with a specific, like, consistent pattern that's happening in terms of reaction, or just the pattern of like feeling dissatisfied with life because you're not showing up in the way that you want to do. This isn't what you thought it would look like. We have to intentionally pause. We have to like make that decision to pause and to observe it, because it's not just going
Mhm.
to naturally happen. It'll just continue that pattern. And then the doing something about it, that piece
That's
is
the difference
hard.
maker. Yeah. I mean, truly and
Yeah.
honestly, most of the women I work with, they're very self-aware. They know the coping skills, they know the breathing techniques, they know all of the pieces.
Yeah.
Knowing the right things to do is not enough. You actually have to be able to do them. And that's where most people fall short is like they know what to do. They think themselves in circles. They will do it for a temporary amount of time and then naturally like the discomfort rears its ugly head. Again, what fires together wires together. So it's going to be hard to challenge those things on your own because it's going to be uncomfortable because your brain doesn't want to do something different because it's safer to be familiar, even if you're
Yeah.
miserable. So it is a lot of you actually have to put action to it and practice over and over and again. A lot of people will get frustrated because it doesn't happen that first time. I know for me, and this sounds so braggy, but it's not meant to be. A lot of things came very easily to me. Most of my like childhood, like most throughout school, I'm a very academic brain, so I could pick up things really fast. So whenever it was something posed a challenge, like that's a little unsettling. And a lot of the women I know, they feel very similar. Like I know what I should be doing. Like, I am a very smart and capable human. Like, most things come very easy to me. So, why is this not clicking?
Yeah. I mean, I relate so much to that. That is very much what my experience was. It's like I say often, if you could just pay me to go to school, like I'm here for it. I don't get test anxiety. I can
Yep.
manage the things. I can write the essay, all of that, right? And then I'm trying to exist out here as an adult and things are hard and I'm like, I'm capable. What's wrong with this? And
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about the fact that reinforcement of things being easy if you just work hard enough, or if you just do the work, you'll get the results. That, I mean, it fires together, it wires together. It's like, of course, we're going to then approach everything with that understanding. And it's going to really suck when it doesn't work, when it's not actually able to be the outcome that we're expecting. Because again, different situation, we have different needs at this point. We are working with a different set of circumstances.
Yes. And it would be nice if we had like a general script. Like, a lot of my clients, they're like, just tell me what to do. Tell me what I
Yeah.
should do in this situation. It's like, but it's not that simple because regardless, you're going to be confronted with this decision again. And it's less about what you're doing and more about like how you make this decision. We co-slept with my son for his first year of life because that was what made sense for our family. Like, I had work, I needed to go and like have functional night of sleep. My husband had school. It was what made sense. Now my kids are, 8, 4, and 6. Like, that isn't an option, right? So I can't make a generic script of like, now my kids are crying at night and like now they can go sleep. That doesn't work, right? So you have to consider all the pieces of the puzzle. You have to take into consideration of like, how do I want to make this decision? Where is this decision coming from? Is it coming from a place of fear? Is it coming from a place of I love myself? I know that I am a solid human regardless of what happens in these circumstances, and like intentional, because it's important to make decisions from intention. What's important to you? It doesn't matter what's important to somebody else. It doesn't matter what somebody else would do in a situation. Last year, we moved homes to have a little more space and that sort of thing. Last year, we decided we were going to school our kids from home. Like none of those there's a clear right and wrong path. We had to make the decision that was most aligned from our family. And it wouldn't have made sense to a lot of people. I mean, I'm pretty sure my mom was pretty ticked off at me when I told her I was schooling from home because she was like, what are you doing to our kids or my grandkids? Not her kids, her grandkids. And I was like, but this is what works for our family. Like I have a very flexible schedule. My husband has a flexible schedule. Like we want family time together and those sorts of things. So you have to do what's most important for you or what's best for you. And it's not going to make sense for everybody. And there is no like generic script that can be, patched over everything.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting thinking about that is you also couldn't necessarily plan for what was going to work best for your family. You didn't know before having kids that this would be what's going to be best. Also, you could try something, right? You could say, this is the best decision. We're going to go with this. And then it's not what you expected. It's actually, you learn because you're now experiencing it that this isn't what I want. Maybe I don't want to be in this role of the teacher with my kids, or actually my kids aren't thriving in this environment, whatever it is. And you couldn't know any of those things necessarily.
You don't know what's going to work and you don't know what is not going to work until you experience it. And it's letting go of the meaning of that, right? Because most people understand, like, you can't predict for everything. You can't control for everything, but it's like letting go of what that means about you. Like when my son would co-sleep, that was big for me because it was so pivotal. And like, I had all of this under control. I had all of this knowledge and like, why can't I do this? My son not being able to sleep was like huge for me and making me feel like I was a crappy mom because he co-slept, like because he was this way and because I couldn't figure it out. And everybody else seemed to get their kids down and could get them to sleep for, 8 hours or whatever. And there was something wrong with me. And so it's like, don't make it mean so much, or like not letting it mean so much to you and what it means about you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really powerful kind of note to wrap things up on, is that we are making a lot of our experiences mean something about us because that's kind of what we've been trained to do. I mean, that's life, right? Our experiences create our identities and things like that, but we have to be aware of what we're making those different pieces mean about us, especially when it comes to things that really have very little to do with who we are, right? Like that example right there, I'm like, my first son had a really hard time sleeping. My second son, like, just wanted to be put in his bassinet and would go to sleep. He would like whine for it. And it was like, okay, this has nothing to do with me. Clearly the issues we had with sleeping with my first son had nothing to do with me, because this is now a baby being raised by the same two parents who literally, I mean, like, not to brag, not to show off, but I think with my second son, I had one single night of having to like stand up and rock him because he was fussy. That was not the case with my first son. He didn't have major sleep issues, but we ended up contact napping. Like, he spent many nights in our bed, like all these things. And I now know it had nothing to do with his parents, because we raised another kid who just had different preferences, right?
Exactly.
So I think all of that, it's so crucial. Like the awareness, the just being aware of what we're making things mean is so crucial. And knowing that we're constantly doing that, and we don't necessarily have to. We don't have to make those stories mean something about us.
Yeah. And I think it's taking that awareness and then what do you do with it? I think that's where most people get stuck. And it's that idea of like, okay, and you're allowed to feel this way and you don't have to like try and fix it, right? You're allowed to feel like, oh, I'm such a failure, or oh, I'm such a this. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact. It just means you're allowed to feel it. Telling yourself that you're not a failure, telling yourself like, no, look at all this amazing stuff. Yeah, it goes a little ways. Like, yeah, I think positive self-talk is important. And I don't believe necessarily in the like silver lining things. Like, you're allowed to feel crappy, and also there is the positive that exists. So I 100% hear what you're saying. And yeah, it's like deciding that it doesn't have to mean so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then doing the work to kind of rewire
to get there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope anyone listening to this, if you have some of these things that come up, we all do. We all have these things that we tell ourselves about ourselves, and just understanding that you can choose to do different. You can choose to put the work in to do different and feel different as a result. So I think that's really, really powerful.
Absolutely.
Before we completely wrap up, I like to end the conversation with a question that I ask all guests about your sparkle. I think of the sparkle that we all have as like the internal essence of who we are that kind of shines out of us when we are in a good place, when we're able to show up as ourselves. But it's something that can also be kind of buried under the roles and responsibilities, especially of motherhood, of work, of all of these things. How do you protect your sparkle?
If I'm being honest, like I think my spiritual life has been like the biggest protector of my sparkle. I think my faith in all of that has really been the protector of my sparkle, of being able to wake up in the morning and have my Bible time, having prayer, having, different touch points with like God throughout my day has been such a big part of my like protecting my sparkle, because I remember who I am and who I was made
Yeah.
for, or like what I was made for, and like who I was made by, and like all of those pieces. So I think that's the biggest part of my sparkle, is that idea of like I have nothing to prove, and my faith reminds me of that.
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. And I'm somebody who is not religious,
Mhm.
but I have gone through a divorce and a lot of life changes over the last few years, and have
Mhm.
actually really turned to spirituality in a different way,
Yeah.
of really tapping
Absolutely.
into like just, yeah, understanding that we're a part of something bigger, whatever that means to you as an individual, whether that is within a religious faith or
Yeah.
whatever else it is. Exploring like that connection to something beyond is really powerful. And I think that's a really beautiful answer. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Where can listeners find you and maybe work with you? Is there anything they should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah. So the best place to connect with me is through Instagram, at confidently.alexis, and send a message. Like if you listen to the episode, I'm happy to connect, like send a message. I also have been offering like free 30-minute intensives. So what that looks like is we talk about something that, a lot of the women I work with have been struggling with, whether that is like feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, not sure how to balance their work schedule, all of those pieces. Like it's that idea of snapping, spiraling, and shutting down, focusing on one of those areas and having kind of a strategy to move forward with as like a next step. And so I've been offering those 30-minute intensives as well. And if you just message me on Instagram, I'm happy to like connect you with my schedule and all of those things. And then from that DM conversation, or from that conversation on Instagram, I generally like can chat through like, is this a good fit? I answer any questions you have and those sorts of things, whether that be with the intensive or working together in my Power Mom Accelerator program.
Amazing. I will make sure and have all of that contact info, your Instagram and all of that linked in the show notes as well. So it's easy to
Sounds
find
great.
you.
Yeah.
Alexis, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me today. I think it's an important one.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to like chat with me and having me on the podcast. I love the space you're creating to kind of normalize the struggles of motherhood, normalize like the different components of motherhood, the different pieces of the identity. And so I just
Yeah.
appreciate these conversations.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for tuning in. Keep on shining. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sparkle Project. Loved what you heard? Share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to leave a rating and review to show your support for the show. We'll be back next week with another episode. See you then.